Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Daniel Umstead, host of the RNG radio show. I got with me another king. He's going to drop some gems. So if you ever feel that you just need to pause and write these gems down or just get in contact with the brother, please feel free to do so. But before we get started, I got to talk about my guest, y'all. So he is a seasoned professional with a diverse background that spans across multiple industries. With a solid foundation in mass media, he has transitioned into office management where he honed his organizational skills and leadership capabilities. Currently thriving in the dynamic real estate sector, and because I've been knowing him for a while, has been knowing him for quite some time, he is a licensed mortgage lender, accredited realtor, and astute investor. His passion lies in fostering connections and bridging gaps between leaders, showcasing a unique talent for networking and relationship building. A proud Temple University alum, he is deeply rooted in the vibrant community of East Mount Airy, Philadelphia, where he resides as a devoted family man. His commitment to excellence and his ability to navigate complex landscapes make him an invaluable asset, in the real estate arena. Ladies and gentlemen, perky is up. I said, start writing down these gems that are about to come your way. I have the one and only King Shad Hammond. Good sir, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, appreciate the warm reception. Love being on the RNG radio show. It's been a while. I'm happy to be here. I am Shad, like this young man just mentioned. I am a real estate professional. I like to call myself these days a home ownership. That's a home ownership strategist, right? And so, more than just a loan officer or more than just obviously a real estate professional is a window that might be too big, but just honing in on how, I can help people and add value to people who want to find sustainability, safety, security, and build legacy via home ownership, using home ownership as a vehicle. So again, great, glad to be here. Obviously, I'm licensed in 40 states. I don't know if you know that, Dan, or 39 states. So I can help you wherever you're at, just about, right? Might not be able to help you in like Vermont or Alaska or Hawaii. I don't think I got those states. I may. I gotta look at the list. But I'm national, but more importantly, right now I'm local. So PA, Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland is where I do most of my bids. Florida, Georgia.
I love that, man.
That's
Love
me.
it. And I want to point out our first gem. Outside of just your background here, you talk about build a legacy. A lot of folks, hear about real estate, they hear about mortgage, and it either scares them or they're jumping right in and trying to figure out, which pathway they're supposed to be going. So you talk about build a legacy and mentioning that. What is like one or two things people can do right now to start building that legacy if they're not sure where to start?
So very, very good question. And honing it down to two, I live life in a life of bullet points, right? And yellow post-its, right? I live in that kind of world where I'm always writing something down and this is the most important thing. No, this is even more important. Or, you can cut to the chase by doing these three things, right? But so that's difficult. I would definitely say being as though that we are in a world where we are not as consumers, but people also of BIPOC, people of color, right, and indigenous folks, we are not always the folks who make the rules, but we are heavily playing the game, right? Playing the game at a frequent level, high, frequent level, and we don't always make the rules. And one place that we don't make the rules, but we're often affected by the rules as we try to play the game is via credit, right? And we may not like credit. We may not like the credit bureaus. We may not like this credit-driven machine that we have to thrive in, that we're forced to thrive in, that means so much for us personally, as well as for our families. We still have to play that game. And so monitoring your credit, knowing your credit skills, being able to, swallow your pride and evaluate yourself, or swallow your pride and have a professional evaluate your credit. That takes a lot, that takes a lot to say, all right, well, I know I was dropping the ball last year, right? I know I was robbing Peter to pay Paul last year. I don't even really want to know what my score is now. No, you have to know what your score is now. You have to know what your score is now. You got to get started, and every day is the right day to get started. So know your credit scores, know how credit impacts, your goals and your visions and some of the stuff that you want you know that I can't get anywhere close unless I get my credit together. So one thing is, especially now where banks are getting tighter as things become, crazier out here in terms of credit and banks going under and things like that, and banks wanting to protect themselves, right? You want to know your credit. And then if you need help, be able to, again, swallow your pride and step up and say, hey, I need some help. What's the best move? How do I build my credit? So, again, knowing your credit and then also, again, planning. And I know that sounds general, but a lot of times planning is knowing and dreaming, right? Knowing and dreaming and visualizing what you want, and then what are the steps in place to get there, and building a team. And that's where, again, I come in at, you mentioned me being a connector. You normally, my phone is on 8 days a week, blowing up with people either asking me for solutions or asking me where to find those solutions. And again, a lot of that comes from me connecting others with others, right? And so other leaders with other leaders. And so heavy on the planning and heavy on the building your team. So planning, 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 planning. Nothing of worth comes without a plan. So credit and then building your team. And if you want to go into real estate, whether on an investor level or a single family home as a I don't want to be anybody's landlord. I just want to buy a house, for just me and my family. Well, again, all of that still comes with a certified plan and most likely you building a network around you to get there. Because you don't do this every day, right? Not everybody's a real estate professional.
Right. Right. No, man, I appreciate that. And you talked about contact. So if you could please, share your contact information for the folks at home who are listening to get in contact with you. Because ladies and gentlemen, please understand, yes, it is a difficult matter, but once you get through it, once you get through those first 5 to 6 steps, it's easy sailing from there. You're going to hit those bumps in the road. Not everything is perfect, but when you look at your starting score in the 400s, and I'm just going off of people's examples, starting scores in the 400s, and then they're like coming back and saying like, yo, man, I got 705. What? That's impactful. That does something for yourself. So with that being said, King Shad, can you drop that contact info as well as where folks can find you at on social media?
I certainly can. So I'm Shad Hammond. That's short for Rashad. Most folks, I definitely will bump into some folks who call me Shad. My crew, my staff, we kind of laugh because, every time they hear it, they're ready to flip a table. And me, I just smile and nod. So you may hear that a couple folks may call me Shad. I'll smile and nod in the answer to that. But oddly enough, my name is Rashad. Short Shad, Shad Hammond. Also, Shad Knows Loans on Instagram, Shad Hammond on LinkedIn, Shad Hammond YouTube, Shad Hammond on Facebook. My direct line, you obviously can get that from me as well. That number is on 8 days a week, literally. It's blowing up right now. So, yeah, don't be a stranger. Let's strategize. Let's build together.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. And then start from the beginning, man, because I definitely know I wasn't in school thinking about getting into real estate or even starting in it. It definitely took time to get there. Where did your passion start at, man? What made you want to be this investor, this realtor, this mortgage lender? Like, what got you into the space? What got you hungry for it?
Yeah, I don't think anybody drew it up like that, Dan. Rarely do people just sit at home and just say, you know what, I want to invest in real estate. Not at 18, 19, 20, 25. I mean, now we're living in an information age. So we do have access to so much information and we do have access to previous generations' mistakes and successes. So we know going forward, a little bit more about certain paths. We have more information than we've ever had, more information than we can even process, right? Especially now with AI. So for me, I didn't at all think about numbers. I was never a number person. I was never somebody that wanted to build anything. I have white collar hands. My hands are softer than anyone I've ever dated, right? And so these hands, they ain't building nothing, right? And so that was never a world that I dreamed a space that I'd be in, right? I'm TV, I'm radio, I'm photography. I speak well. I speak in front of folks well, public speaking. I write extremely well. That was my first gift. So again, that's the world that I come from, right? Communications, mass media, right? And so slowly but surely, I did have so many people at one specific time pursue real estate as a way to either second career or a way to, again, um, enhance as just to be another reliable stream of income. And so having all of those forces around me at one time, I got the itch as well. And then so, I entertained for a short time being an agent. Obviously, I'm not really practicing right now. Didn't really work out too good. They made it look a lot easier on HGTV. But at some point, the financial side hit me and it fell into my lap. It was nothing that I pursued. And one thing is for certain, whether it had been in real estate or even my very first job as a bagger and then eventually a cashier and eventually a nighttime manager at a super fresh in the Haddington area, right? Is I've always liked to work with people and I've always liked to help people. And so the mortgage space, um, when I started really making an impact, and not to brag, but I've closed over 1,235 loans. I think I'm at 1236 within the
Oh,
last 8 years,
let's go. That's it,
right?
man.
Across 39 states, right? And so the feeling of helping people on a grandiose level like this one became to be a euphoric sensation, right? Attending closings and seeing families pass keys over to the other family, like as corny as that may sound to you, if I can paint that picture for those who are watching this, it's a feeling like no other. And it puts a lot of the stress because working in a real estate space is an extremely stressful, demanding industry. It may not seem like it, but it certainly is because almost everything that you draw up in the beginning, that's not how it ended, right? That's not how the story ended. It may have ended with a happy ending, but everything in the middle were all sorts of loops and turns and obstacles that you had to sort through. And there's deadlines and there's personalities and several different roles from the realtor, the lender, the appraiser, the inspector, the title company, the structural engineer, whatever, right? Contractors. But I enjoy helping people and adding value and building people up. And working in the real estate space, specifically in the mortgage space, allows me to do that. And I see it. I see the impact. I see the tears, right? I know the stories going in when I first meet someone that says, hey, I need to change my living situation in the next 60 days, right? I hate my landlord. He's a jerk, never fixes anything. Or I am in a space that's unsafe. I have family, I have kids to raise. I can't raise them here, right? Or I've been living on this couch for the last 3 years. I got to change. And then now, fast forward, we went from A to Z, and now you see the gratification. You see that someone's life is truly impacted by the acquisition of this property. Or again, I need to build wealth. This is my 10th home. Thanks, Shad, right? Whether it be on that small micro level, or again, as someone that's constantly doing this and is a machine, we're still helping people on a high level. And that's really damn cool. Really cool.
That's amazing, man. And I want to point this out because you talk about it being a stressful and demanding environment, having to work 8 days a week. When there's no light at the end of the tunnel, the family, the individual has done everything that they're supposed to be doing, but there's a delay. Structural engineer, that inspection, something popped up that nobody foresaw before, because it happened years back. How do you keep going, man? How do you keep, steadying the race? How do you keep seeing light at the end of the tunnel when it's like pitch black in front of you, 360
Mm,
degrees, 8 days a week?
yeah, absolutely. It's the scar tissue, sadly. It's the scar tissue that you build up over time. There was a time where the transactions would I don't want to say get the best of me, but in some ways they did, where I'm wearing it at home. I'm wearing it around the house. I'm wearing the stress on my sleeve because I'm so emotionally invested in. And again, if I was able to paint a picture for anybody that's watching, about, how these transactions, each one is important. Each one is important. Each one is important. And the moment I meet a family, it's almost as if this is my transaction, right? I really take it serious and take it very personal. And there was a time where, these transactions, they beat me up if they didn't go well. But the amount of scar tissue and the amount of experience that only time and repetitions can provide, that's where you're able to say, hey, look, I've seen this before. I've seen worse, or I know we got a good crew. This is a big problem, but look, we got stars all around. We got kings and queens all around. We can get through this if we, keep a cool head. But I think it's scar tissue and experience that get me through, and knowing in most cases it will work out, and also belief, right? Also belief, creator. If it's meant for you to be in them four walls, you'll be in them four walls. And if it wasn't for you and this wasn't your time, it wasn't your time, and something greater for you is usually on the horizon. In most cases, the few times where things did not work out, we failed up. We've actually failed up. I have families where, this seemed like the house, and it was a tough pill to swallow when it wasn't. And then a couple weeks later, we're under contract again. Oh, by the way, this house has a finished basement where that one didn't. Oh, and this house is 15 grand lighter, and your payment is, $80 less. But you're getting a better house, right? And just a couple weeks ago, we were all crying collectively, and now we've essentially failed up, and it happens. So it's belief, experience, battle tested, scar tissue, been there, right? And realizing that I can't wear every transaction on my sleeve, right?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and you talk about emotional investment. I mean, that's so key because it's not even so much your transaction; they become your family in a
To
sense.
become your family, Dan.
What was it in the burial? The Jamie Foxx movie with Tommy Lee Jones. They stayed in contact through to the end. Over that amazing transaction, but those relationships build, and that was one thing that I got caught up with, and I'm glad I was told to it. This real estate business, for anybody who's looking to get in it, or if you're even currently in it, understand it's a relationship business. It's not transactional. We do a lot of transactions, and a lot of calls as if it felt like it was just strictly on paper and that's it. But your heart gets in it, your heart gets in it. One thing I wanted to ask you, as folks are getting in, any book recommendations that you could give to somebody who, just needs to take the time. This may be their first 6 months or first 3 to 6 months as far as getting started, and they're just looking for that learning material. What books could you recommend?
Okay, so I'm gonna recommend them one that everybody should start off with, whether you're starting in a business, whether you have no love at all for real estate, and you just need to know how the United States is essentially operating, is The Color of Law, right? The Color of Law was probably one of the most important books that I've ever read in my life. And it was a book that talks about redlining. It talks about how essentially Black and brown folks weren't allowed to buy in certain zip codes, weren't given a head start. So we're talking about a marginalized group of people already, right? But weren't allowed to buy. And then when we let them buy, they weren't allowed to buy where they wanted to buy. And they also weren't given a lot of the same type of opportunities, white folks were given. And, if you already understand how segregation worked on you can't sip from this water fountain, or you can't sit at this table, you got to sit at the back of the bus, those things are extremely inconvenient and unfortunate and unfair. But now amplify that to a housing situation, amplify that to how housing is handled and how it had been handled, and how when you talk about someone's net worth, the biggest difference between someone that has an extreme net worth and someone that doesn't is the house. Simple as that. It's the house and the equity that you build from home ownership. You can't build equity if you're a renter, right? And so usually the big difference of why Black and brown people are about what, $40,000 is the average net worth of a Black and brown person, and someone that is non-Black or brown is could be $300,000 or 344,000, something like that. The biggest difference between the two is simple. It's a house. It's either you got one or you don't. And if you don't, your worth is this. And if you do, your worth is usually much higher. So the color of law breaks that down, but it literally is a big time history lesson. And for those of us who don't believe in a disparagement or, um, who think, oh, come on, that was years ago, man. Come on, man, get over it, man. Come on. Everybody's got a fair shake, right? You need to read that book, and you'll see how the impact is lasting. And if you start everybody pretty much at the race at the same line, but then you start giving people a couple head starts and you giving them a house, you literally giving them a house, you'll see where that impact goes 30, 40, 50 years from now versus the non folks who weren't given a house. And oh, by the way, they still can't drink at your water fountain or, sit at your dinner table or your lunch counters that we're calling them. So Color of Law, that one is huge. Go Giver is a book that I've always recommended for people. The Go Giver by Bob Berg is a book built on gratitude, very easy finish. But I'm someone who's heavy on giving and giving until it hurts. And then I look up and I'm like, wow, I gave a lot. Then I give some more, right? And some people say you can't give it all away, but a lot of the blessings that I receive, and I receive a lot, I tend to think of come from me giving first, right? And not necessarily always looking for something to be reciprocated at that time. So Bob Berg is a great book, The Go Giver, and he's written it for a number of different lanes. You know how one book gets written and now all of a sudden Go Giver for business, Go Giver for church, so he's got a couple of other spinoffs, but The Go Giver is a really, really good book. That, those are two that might not be in somebody's heavy rotation. So one on gratitude, one on the history of how real estate and wealth were built in this country.
No, I love that. And the author of this book, he's such a friendly and connecting guy. I took a shot. I was on LinkedIn and I was like, oh, shoot, the guy's on LinkedIn. So I followed him. He follows me back. I was like, well, I'll just throw out a connection. Threw out a connection request. I was like, hey, I was inspired by your book. Replies back to me. It's like, oh, I'm so glad you got so much out of
Dude,
it. Stay connected. I'm like, this guy. And
Bob
the,
Berg will do that, man. He will pop up in your DMs. He will comment on a post. You mention his book and mention him, he's going to be like, so
like,
glad you
what?
guys were
He
impacted.
shows
He
the
like,
love. Because you're thinking, like,
Robert?
this guy's got, like, so many followers. He ain't got time for me.
Yes.
Right.
No. No.
Right.
Bob Berg will. Now this is Bob Berg, right?
Right.
This ain't no Bob, right? Bob,
Right.
this you?
This is the real one.
Is that you, Bob? Yo,
Bobby.
Bob, right, Bobby. Bobby will pull up on you. So yeah, man, I'm glad you know that one, right? That was a good one, right? Good
Yeah,
book.
definitely, man. Definitely a home run. Question for you. You're in this market. You've been doing it for quite some time now.
Hmm.
We're the end of 2023. What's 2024, 2025, man, looking like from your perspective? Like, what do you foresee going on? Like, there's been news as far as the rates going backwards or staying where they're currently at. From your vision, because you're in it daily, 8 days a week, might I add. What are you foreseeing for the future?
Man, D, I am so excited for next year. Because and again, I'm really, really been like ODing on information. Mainly because not only it's because it's a new year, and it's also an election year where the incumbent is running. So there's going to be heavy impetus and incentive to be able to push the economy in a place that's favorable for many, right? So a couple factors. Here again, not only am I excited for those just because it's a new calendar year, but oh, by the way, we were at interest rates for 17 straight weeks, seven or higher. It's 2 straight weeks where they've been lower than seven. So Christmas came for the world of interest rates this year, and it's been coming, and now we're in the mid sixes, been flirting with the low sixes. So it gives us a glimpse of how things can change, right? And how things can change pretty quickly. That those changes happen within literally one, they were inching lower, but one press conference where the Fed finally said, you know what, I do think inflation is coming down some, and I wouldn't oppose a couple rate dips next year, right? Now, a couple rate decreases next year. And everybody's like, he finally sees it. He finally sees the cooling. He finally has looked at enough reports where he thinks that we'll be in a much better place with inflation. And in fact, if he still keeps going with these hikes or even keeps rates here, we're now become more restrictive, right? Well, we want to restrict for a little bit to cool things down because we printed money up like nobody's business for years.
Right.
And regarding on whoever was our president, these roosters were going to come home to hatch. Good. Yep. We were going to be here with inflation, right? Regardless who our president was, we were going to be with inflation. We were going to see high prices for gas, groceries, and goods, right? But now we're starting to see things, cool down and inflation cool down. And when inflation cools down, rates start to go down. And whether the government pushes rates to go down or they organically go down, typically after inflation, rates go down. That's just how it's been over the last 5 inflations going back towards Nixon and Gerald Ford. So 2024, we do see rates going low. We do see possible maybe anywhere between 3 is what I'm hearing to 5 um, stabs at the interest rate where he plans on maybe lowering it by 25 basis points. And again, that should indirectly now mortgage interest rates, whether you're a residential or whether you're going for commercial, they're not directly impacted by whatever the Fed does, but an indirect effect on rates does tend to, most mortgage interest rates are backed behind the 10-year treasury, right? And so as the 10-year treasury does what it does and it's now under 4%, that's where you're seeing that dip. But we've gotten into the sixes mainly based off of just one last week, one very good press conference where he finally said, hey, I think we're going to be in a good place next year and we may start to decrease the national interest rate. But real quick, what that means in a very, very short term.
Yeah, explain. Go ahead.
Good for buyers. It will drive a lot more buyers here in quarter 1 towards the game. Guys who were sitting on the sidelines or guys who were sitting in the mix, but they weren't really saying it with their chest, but they're shopping, right? They're going to look up and realize, well, I could buy a little bit more house than I could just 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? I could afford a little bit more than I could just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that's again in this quarter 1. If things keep going the same, we're going to get more buyers. But with more buyers, you still didn't hear much from inventory, right? Buyers aren't necessarily going to see more inventory, right? So more buyers, still the same inventory. What's that going to do? It's going to drive up competition. It's going to drive up competition. So we're going to be looking at a really competitive winter market where normally things are kind of cool, chill, you know, very good time to buy during the winter because you're not seeing as many buyers. You're seeing sellers who have incentive to sell. Because if you're selling your home right now in the cold, where you're having people looking at your house with Christmas decorations up and family over, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, but they just coming in real quick
They
just to
just
look
gonna
around. I'm
5 more
sorry.
minutes. 5 more
They just
minutes.
gonna be
Keep
in here
over
five
here
more
to
minutes.
the
No, drink
bedroom.
up, drink up. Uh-huh. Yeah, you can go up the steps, baby. The lights on. Yeah, we just making. You want something to eat? Literally talking to
I can make that
strangers.
play.
I can make you a plane on the way out. Literally, if you were selling now, you have incentive to sell. You are selling more than likely because you have to sell or you really, really, really want to sell. And then again, you're buying right now. You really, really, really want to buy, right? But guess what? You also got a gift. That interest rates are literally almost a full point lower than they were, 4 to 6 weeks ago. So winter market, we're going to see a lot more activity. I know it because I feel it, right? My phone is going nuts this week. Nuts. 10 pre-approvals this week alone. And that's 60% more than last week, right? So amplified winter market, we're going to see more buyers. We have seen a little edge in the inventory. We're going to see more people now saying, all right, it is what it is. I'm never going to be the sellers become what then? They become buyers, right? Most people have to buy once they sell, right? So they're sitting back and they've been looking. They seen Francine next door to them sell, and then when she had to become a buyer, she bought for 2% interest rate. They seen Miss Barbara on the other side. She sold her house after 30 years. She moved into a condo. She got 3.5%. Now you telling me I want to sell just like them, but I got to get in for a 7% rate?
Right.
Well, guess what? It's been that way now, sixes, five, sixes, and sevens for about a year and a half. And now that shock and awe has been removed. And we now know we are in a higher rate marketplace. But if they start to go down, that'll give some people the nudge to sell. And we'll start to see more inventory, right? And we need it badly. We need inventory badly. But lower rates mean more buyers, but the caveat is more competition. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. We're going to see more transactions. We've been down about 40% year over year in terms of transactions, and that number continues to grow as more numbers are coming in. We are seeing more confidence in new construction properties. So more builders they're back. They're like, look, I think this year's going to be a big one. Let's build, 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 build. That helps what? That helps inventory. We are going to unfortunately still see values increase. People keep thinking about this bubble, Dan. They keep thinking of the housing crisis and, oh, by the way, the house should have never sold for 325. Mark my words, it'll be 250 by next year. It won't. It won't.
It keeps going up. People not
It keeps
realizing it.
going up.
Check the history. Check it.
Keeps going up. 4% a year is what it's kind of been going, and that's not going to change. And again, it's not going to change because it's just simply not enough product in anything. Whether you got a Daniel's lemonade stand or you're selling t-shirts out your trunk, less product means more demand in many cases, right? Means seller can drive up prices. You want it, what you willing to pay for it. And it's been that way for quite some time. It's been a seller's market for quite some time. And so we've seen ebb and flows where it hasn't been as tight of a grip as previous, where now all of a sudden seller's concession might be in play again, but it hasn't really been a buyer's market for quite some time.
Wow. Yeah, appreciate that, man. Listen, another point I wanted to ask you. Before I get to that, if you can, please give us that contact info one more time, as well as social media.
Yep, for those just jumping on, I am Shad Hammond, Shad Knows Loans on Instagram, Shad Hammond on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube page, which is evolving. And yeah, I'm serving 39 states, slicing and dicing real estate as a real estate professional, home ownership strategist. And whether it be from the financing aspect of helping you strategize your next investment property, helping you downsize, or just bridging the gap between other leaders looking for leaders. That's my niche. That's how I serve.
Appreciate that, man. And one last question, I should say, as we wrap up here. You mentioned AI a little bit, as well as the future.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely in that information age. It's not hearing from your neighbor or waiting for the 6 o'clock news to come on to tell you what the current interest rate is. You can just Google it. With the future of technology and AI, how do you see that benefiting the real estate market as we continue to grow into 2024 and beyond?
Well, I think everybody should be using it as a tool, right? Whether it be from simply just professional writing, where I've used it for replying to negotiations. I've used it for professional letters regarding real estate and the pursuit of different homes and, helping you build out contracts that are different from the templates that we may use, having it help you build templates. Um, AI has been helpful. So outside of what I've explained, what I do, something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I do spend a lot of time on. In fact, after our show, I'll be jumping on our call. My business partner is the founder of the New Agent Handbook, where we generate a curriculum for new agents, non-broker specific, nationwide. We've got literally subscribers in all states, but heavy on building a new agent's business. And we do use AI a ton. We do believe heavy on social media and the use of using digital marketing. And so AI can be a great tool for that. So again, from the writing contracts, writing things and professional writing and business writing, but also helping using AI to help you build out a social media campaign. a business campaign, an advertising campaign. So believe it or not, depending on how descriptive you get in your inquiries, it can generate some badass content, and some excellent ideas. But you have to be detailed. You have to be descriptive and know how to ask for what you want. But you can't overwhelm it. You can't break it. So use it, right? Use it as much as you can. And I guarantee you probably don't have to pay for some high-end coach. So just use it. The more you use it, the more the AI will grow and mirror what you've been asking for, what your interests are. If you use Chat GPT, they have the free one. That just for folks who may be looking at goes up until 2022. All right, so that OS stops at 2022. And I know that again, there's so many different AI platforms. Bard is a good one that's Google based, right? That one is more fluid and more current. Chat GPT's paid for, which I think is about $40 a month. That one is more current, more fluid. But the OS for the free version stops at 2022. So what? Use free stuff, right? Just know some of the more time sensitive stuff that you might ask for, it may be dated, right? Because sometimes when I ask for mortgage stuff, it says rates are historically low. I'm like, bro, we had a 22-year high right now. What you talking about?
Right.
With your old stuff, you all played out, old player, right?
Oh,
But
well,
yeah, it goes up to 2022. So, but use these tools, man. AI will change the game. I don't run from it. I use it as a tool. It can't replace us though, Dan. It can't replace the authenticity, and the frontline warfare of, operating in this crazy time, these crazy times that we're living in. It can't replace the hug, can't replace, a kiss, a warm text message that says, "Hey, I value you, you're my guy," or "Hey, mom, I love you." So use it as a tool, but remember, it can't replace, you, this or this. So yeah, man, that's all I got.
I appreciate the gems, brother. Really appreciate it. So, again, thank you so much for having you on here. What can folks pretty much just expect of you, King Shad? As we go into 2024, what things should folks be looking out for you? Are we looking at 1,500 transactions
Oh
plus
man,
coming from you?
we
I'm
got we got to tap boards, man. I'm all
manifesting.
about tapping them boards, man. All about tapping them boards and cashing those checks and helping folks, man, and bringing, like I said, bringing some value. Um, January, I do anticipate being active. Next year, I want to definitely build range and build my touch. So a lot more collaborative efforts with other leaders. I know on MLK Day is my next event where it'll be a first time buyer um, event in person at a really central location, Broadmaster in North Philadelphia. Want to pack the place heavy, want to give back because again, it's on MLK Day. So I really want to funk that out. But more events where they're in person and again, collaborating with other leaders. I just joined the executive board of Philly's chapter of NAREB, so PNBR. So as one of the treasurers. So again, working with other leaders, helping build a whole new regime. S. David Hudson is on that as the uh, new forget the term president elect,
Yeah.
right? So new regime, new energy. So I'm looking forward to leadership in regards to that. I've been a member for about a year or so. I've kind of been a fly on the wall, so I can't wait with all new leadership to kind of see where we can take that. But yeah, more collaboration. 2024 is going to be a year of collaborating, and I want to flex my muscles in regards to some of the scar tissue and some of the skills that I picked up during some of the slower times or how difficult transactions were at different times, those lessons that I learned. I want to flex those. I want to use those and execute. And I think 2024 will see a better version of myself due to the challenges, the many challenges 2023 offered. Sorry for being so long-winded.
No, man, no, because listen, I always say this, and I'm even going to talk about it even after the show once we, briefly wrap up here. But it's going to be 2024. Y'all are listening to this, and you're going to look down at the calendar, as we enter 2025 and be like, whoa, Shad was dropping some gems, some facts as far as where we're headed, where we're currently at right now, and then they're going to get it, and then they're going to understand it. So it's best, giving out, what's to come, so that way when they do see it, as they will. I mean, this is why I got over 200 plus episodes, y'all. The people that have come on this show show their success. They talk about what's going to happen, make actionable steps towards making it happen, and then they have it happen and then come back. So with that, King Shad, always appreciate you, man. Brother from another mother. Let's shine together. Iron sharpens iron, man. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Appreciate you for having me, man. It's always a pleasure. Definitely a good vibe, and appreciate the platform. And Happy New Year.
Yes.
And let's get them this year. Let's grow. Let's build. We can build together. It's always the best way to do it. But yeah, cheers. Cheers to a new year. Peace and prosperity.
Awesome, man.
Thank you for tuning in to the RNG Radio Show. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes and future content. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at danielumstead.com. Stay blessed, my fellow millionaires.